Greetings metalheads and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I'm back with another 4 recommendations, 4 brutal death metal albums that if you've not checked them out, never heard of these, then I definitely consider them to be worth listening to. I would consider these to all be quite obscure albums, not necessarily the sort of thing you're gonna stumble upon all that easily on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. But obviously, if you are really into your brutal death metal, as I said on the previous recommendations of obscure brutal releases that I did a few weeks back, I said, you know, if you're really into this sort of subgenre, if you're really into this style of metal, then to you this is probably household names. This is really, common stuff that you're already aware of. But for those who maybe aren't as familiar with some of the deeper recesses of the brutal death metal world, then hey, these are a few good albums for you to check out if you're looking to delve a little bit deeper and, find a few interesting things to listen to, no doubt. So these 4 in particular, they are just ones that I happen to have been listening to quite recently. A couple of these bands I had heard of before, as I've mentioned a couple of times on this channel. When I was in my late teens into early adolescence, I was pretty big into brutal death metal, deathcore, and sort of slamming brutal death metal. I was really big into that stuff. I was absolutely lapping up all of the breeze and slam fists and all that kind of good groovy stuff. But to be honest, I'm not going to say that I grew out of it. I just moved on to different things. I suddenly got drawn in by old school death metal, definitely in a big way, and of course black metal, thrash metal, right across the metal spectrum, but kind of stepped away from slam and brutal death metal a little bit. But I've been slowly trying to re-educate myself and re-familiarise myself with this subgenre. And these are just 4 albums that I picked up fairly recently that I have enjoyed and would definitely recommend to a friend. So, take the first choice from the, in no particular order of any of these, just top of the pile. This is a band entitled Decomposition of Entrails. So a nice, friendly name. Great bit of artwork there. Really crazy, colourful. There's some sort of, alien mutant thing going on there. Really grim. This album is entitled Abnormality. Certainly an abnormal bit of artwork there. This was released in 2019 on Reality Fade Records. And I would say that this is a pretty slamming release. This is a Russian band. They've got quite a number of albums actually, but this is a very short and sweet album. Somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes long. So it's very short, barely more than an EP. But there's our lineup there. A good collection of musicians. See if I can pronounce names. We've got Kirill on vocals. We've got Rustam on bass, Dmitry on guitars, and Evgeny on drums. And one thing I've talked about this before, one thing I really can't get along with necessarily, and it is very prevalent in brutal slamming death metal, is not actually having a real drummer, just having a drum machine or having drum tracks. That really just doesn't do it for me. It's just annoying, to be honest. But a full band, actual genuine humans making music, seriously crushing slam, seriously heavy stuff. Got some massively weighty crushing grooves there. It's kind of up there in my opinion with your let's just say bands like Vulvodynia, where they've got that real kind of intricacy, very heavy, Abominable Putridity along those same sort of lines, Extermination, Dismemberment, crushing heavy stuff, massive dropping booming riffs and gutturals that sound absolutely bestial. It's just a good release. If you want to put something on that is just monolithically crushing and heavy, then Abnormality from Decomposition of Entrails is certainly a good place to start. Short and sweet, as I say, savage Russian slam. So that's our first recommendation. Up next, we've got an album from 2018 out on Unique Leader Records, a very good label. They put their name to so many brutal albums, so many brutal bands that they represent. But this is the band Within Destruction from Germany, I believe. No, actually, I think they're from Slovenia. That for some reason comes to mind. And this is entitled Death Wish. So this was, I believe, this was their third album. A little bit of Metal Encyclopedia research does tell me. But this is a seriously weighty deathcore album. Seriously heavy chugging riffs. Again, it's a full band, which I really appreciate. There's our lineup. Serious musicians, very, very talented. But this is very brutal stuff. I wonder if we've got a lineup shot in here. I don't think we have on this one. But cool guest appearance at one point from Duncan Bentley, formerly of Vulvodynia. Does a very good, brutal effort there. Vocals are absolutely monstrous. It's that real kind of Dickie Allen, really guttural sound. Will Ramos, you know, keeps those sort of deathcore vocalists, those sort of styles in mind. Very good stuff. I'll just say that if you like very extreme deathcore, where it's on that kind of ultra brutal death metal end of the spectrum, then you're definitely going to appreciate this. If you're a fan of, as I mentioned, bands like Extermination Dismemberment, if you're a fan of Lorna Shore, if you're a fan of, I don't know, any of these other bands, then definitely you're going to enjoy this. Savage stuff, not necessarily for everyone, but Death Wish is a good album. It's about 40 minutes long. You've got an intro and an outro piece, but just seriously crushing stuff. Think Suffocation, think Dying Fetus on steroids. Okay, seriously weighty stuff. But not to say that it's better than those bands, because it's not. But it is seriously heavy, extreme metal. So yeah, check that one out. So up next, we've got a band from Thailand, I believe, and this is their second album, which was released in 2021, courtesy of Comatose Music. We have the band Intricated, and the album is entitled Apocalyptic Metamorphosis. Again, some cool artwork there. Seriously, typical of the, quite generic, of the sort of the brutal death metal slam scene, but very cool. Very, very cool indeed. I would say this is quite uncomplicated in terms of slam. They're not trying to sort of really push the boundaries of acceptability in that subgenre. But I would say, we get a cool little poster in this CD form. I would say that it's actually pretty good stuff. It's very, well, I'm not going to say that it's very palatable, but for brutal death metal, it's quite easy to sort of get along with it, sort of just basically put the album on and tear through it. Again, it's an actual band, which I always think is very important. As I say, I can't necessarily get on board with the whole drum machine thing. I'd rather actually listen to a band tearing through it. And they do absolutely tear through it. Some seriously savage death, brutal death there. Some significant slams as well, but more on that kind of brutal death metal side of things, such reminiscent of bands such as Condemned, for example. A little bit of Defeated Sanity thrown in there, Apostles of Perversion, that kind of good stuff. But nonetheless, an enjoyable listen. A little bit longer, about half an hour long, I believe. But yeah, from Thailand, Intricated, Apocalyptic Metamorphosis, a savage album indeed. Very enjoyable though. Not as savage as Decomposition of Entrails. Maybe a little bit more kind of musical capability. Just throwing that out there, but seriously savage stuff. Worth checking out. So finally, we do have a pretty crowning album here. This is a serious beast of an album from Germany's Cytotoxin, out on Unique Leader Records. This is the fourth album from the band, released in 2020. This is Nuclear Earth. Now, if you can't tell, Cytotoxic very much base themselves thematically around and lyrically around sort of nuclear war, nuclear fallout, post-apocalyptic stuff, all that kind of human desolation and misery and death. pretty good topics. But clocking in about 40 minutes long, we have a seriously punishing brutal death metal album. It does have some significantly chuggy moments there that bring bands like Suffocation or Dying Fetus to mind, but this is monstrous. Vocally, absolutely barbaric. In terms of riff content, I've just noticed it says that on the inside. Never forget Chernobyl. Interesting choice of words there. Very poetic indeed. But a really nice package. Unique Leader Records have done a really good job on this one. It's a really nice little digi. And I believe that this is a full band as well, which is always very welcome, I should say. Because we've got Stocky on drums, I can see there. Which is very important, as I say, actually having a real drummer. Then we've got Vitalis on bass. Again, it's good to actually have a bassist rather than just a rhythm guitar, which is quite common in slam. We've got Grimo on vocals. I'm loving the attention to detail in this little booklet. It's really cool. Then we've got Jason on guitars, rocking the gas mask look there. Very, very creepy. Very creepy stuff indeed. And Fonzo on guitars as well. So it's a full band. And these guys, they're very good musicians. This is a slamming, crushing album. It really does bring bands like Suffocation, Dying Fetus to mind. Bit of Defeated Sanity in there, of course. This is savage stuff. Massive, massive riffs. Unlike these previous albums here that I've just mentioned, where you can kind of put the album on and it just flows seamlessly and there aren't really many standout moments, this album does have a lot of cracking standout moments. Second track, Lupus Aura. Crushing stuff, absolutely city leveling. Drown in Havoc. Coast of Lies. Quarantine Fortress. The title track, Nuclear Earth. Before that sort of outro piece of Mors Temporis. Savage stuff. And this is the only Cytotoxin album that I have. So I need to delve a little bit and see if I can acquire some of their previous albums, because that's a damn fine album. Seriously good. As I say, if you like Suffocation, Dying Fetus, you're definitely going to enjoy that one. This is definitely my favourite out of these 4 albums. This is a crushing effort. I've listened to this quite a number of times recently, actually, and it is an absolute devastating fallout of an album. See what I did there? So if you're feeling in the mood for some brutal death metal, some brutal slam, or a little bit of deathcore, then these are 4 albums for you to check out. Easily accessible on YouTube or Spotify, no doubt. But just to recap, we had Decomposition of Entrails with Abnormality. Good band, just seriously weighty. Then we've got the very experimental Within Destruction with Death Wish in 2018. Subsequently, it would appear that the band has gone off in a completely different direction. Apparently they're sort of in the new metal or metalcore direction, which is quite a change, I suppose. Then we've got the, not going to say formulaic, but I feel like I'm picking on this album actually. It's not formulaic. It's just a little bit more palatable than some of these other ones, which sort of stop you in your tracks and wind you every 5 minutes with a savage breakdown. This is intricated with apocalyptic metamorphosis. Good musicians, good songs, enjoyable, brutal death metal. I enjoy it. And then the crowning glory here, the absolute bomb, Cytotoxin with Nuclear Earth, the winner in this little collection. So there you have it. Check those albums out if you've never heard of them. If you have heard of them, if you're a fan of these bands, whatever, feel free to voice your opinion. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions. But thanks very much for watching, my friends. I hope you enjoy those recommendations. Thank you again for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Check back soon for more reviews and recommendations. Take care, my friends, and of course, stay heavy.